Hey guys, good morning. I have to apologise for my dishevelled looking. There's a reason for that, and you'll find out shortly. Because I'm going to show you some very personal footage of me in probably my most vulnerable state or states in life.
John, you okay?
And I want to do that to drive a message home on many levels. So, this new home I'm staying in is extremely beautiful, and I've took a little clip to show you at the beginning. But 48 hours ago, it was anything but beautiful, because I was fighting perhaps for my life, and I was fighting for my life because I ended up with respiratory paralysis, and I couldn't breathe, and I was raking at my own chest, hoping it would work, and it was very horrific. Now, this obviously is the result of myself having Lyme disease, and actually multisystemic infectious disease syndrome, MSIDS is the correct term, because I have another that we're conscious of, Babesia, and there are likely others in me that are not diagnosed as well. So I want to make clear that I am at the point where I'm nearly 100% positive that Lyme is not questionable as to whether it's a biological weapon that's accidentally being released. And many people will say that's ridiculous, you can't say that. But let me just say, there's a congressman called Chris Smith in America who has read and researched the evidence, the same as myself, and he drew to such a strong conclusion regarding that evidence that he has submitted for President Trump to investigate the situation, because his constituency is filled with people who are not recovering from this illness, despite all medical knowledge, etc. And it's still hard as hell to detect this. UK has great medical systems, Germany has them. The UK detected Babesia, Germany did not. Germany detected Lyme disease, the UK did not, 8 weeks apart. Now, when a congressman submits, you have to start wondering. But there's more to it that I want to add. Borrelia has been around a very long time, the bacteria, but at the moment in its current state, it was only discovered in the 70s. I've covered this in my other video. It's called Lyme because it was discovered in Lyme, Connecticut, just off the coast of Lyme, Connecticut is Plum Island, former weapons research facility, where it's factually now documented that they were weaponizing ticks. Now, a lot of people with Lyme test positive for mycoplasma, and mycoplasma is patented weapon technology by the US military, and is the causation, according to a lot of new studies, for Gulf War syndrome, because it was passed to family members, so it was infectious. Lyme itself is unusual. The bacteria, the borreliosis, the Borrelia spirochete bacteria, is the only bacteria pathogen known to mankind out of all of them, which is many, many, many pathogens and bacteria. It's the only one the human immune system can't detect. And the reason the human immune system can't detect it is to replicate, it relies upon magnesium, whereas everything else relies upon iron. That's why our bodies evolved to be able to identify pathogens via the iron pathway, so our immune system could deal with them, hold them at bay, or kill them. Lyme is the only one that doesn't do that. Lyme is the only one that's using magnesium. It's also been investigated by US Congress. for being, or submitted to be investigated by Congress, to be investigated as a biological weapon that was mistakenly set loose upon the world. Sounds really intense, but I'm going to show you some footage of what it's doing to my body. Because if I'm being honest, I'm getting to the point where it's becoming very apparent now that I'm fighting for my life. And even if it's not necessarily fatality I'm fighting against, I'm still fighting for my life. The reason being is I'm already now disabled. And if this continues, I will become disabled mentally as well. Because this disease attacks the brain. You get brain lesions. There's a clinic in Germany who are testing all of their patients now for Lyme in depth. And they haven't had a single, I think it's the Klinghardt clinic, and out of hundreds of cases, they haven't had a single case of Alzheimer's, a single case of multiple sclerosis, a single case of ALS, where the patients have tested positive for borreliosis or Lyme disease. The reason you're about to see me in this state is I developed a fever. I think I caught a virus. The fever started as I was herxing, as in the bacteria was dying and poisoning my body. And we had ran out of glutathione, which is a toxin binder to make sure your body can deal with it. That can't arrive. I'm in Tanzania. It's not great here for stuff like that. It can't arrive from Kenya for another week. Then when the fever started, Borrelia dies when it's at a certain temperature. That's why I'm contemplating hypothermia treatment in Germany to try and eradicate my body of this. But we're working it all out financially, etc., because there's a lot of cost involved in such treatments because they're niche. Normally used for cancer, but the clinic now does Lyme because they cured a cancer patient's Lyme disease by accident when they did hypothermia treatment. The fever started killing the bacteria as well, so the herx amplified, and I couldn't stop it because I was raging in fever. I started having convulsions, I lacked an ability to breathe, I hallucinated, I thought that Aslan was falling out the bed and he wasn't even with me. I accused Fritzi of hitting me and she wasn't. And at one point, my respiratory system just stopped working. My muscles were so tight, but I was conscious that I couldn't take a breath. And this went on a while, to the degree that Fritzi started trying to blow air into me because I was changing colour. She said I was white and blue, and fighting for my life, eh? So I've stabilised now, and perhaps the virus just pushed me, whatever it was, just pushed me too far, and I feel reasonably stable now. I have had a lot of stress going on the last few days, which probably suppressed my immune system and allowed more to come into me. And I've had stress, it's purely spiritual in nature, because I've had a ridiculous thing said about me which has no substance to it. It's a contortion of reality. It was a very savage contortion of reality, and I'll share about it at some point. But it really upset me. It broke my heart as well, because the person involved I had a great deal of love for, and the fact that that happened just broke my heart. Like, really broke my heart. And I think that weakened me to allow a virus. I'm hoping that's what it was. I hope it doesn't repeat and it's going to be part of the sickness now. I hope that's not the case. But anyway, the result was what happened to me. And I think this is important now, because this thing's out there, you know? And there's so much discussion about transhumanism, and I'm very well versed on Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 because I studied Fabian socialism. And that's why I don't buy all this absolute tosh that people are saying that Agenda 21 has a vegan agenda to make you infertile because it's bullshit. Because the founders of Agenda 21, you can read their autobiographies, and they were vegan. So obviously they didn't believe that. That's not the foundation of why they were doing it. But a lot of it's being contorted and manipulated. And the fact it's being contorted and manipulated, there is a factor within there, which is there's a leadership on the planet, a society wanting to get people into cities and away from nature as a way to preserve nature. But I think one of the greatest deterrents for nature would be to overload it with ticks that nobody has the antidote for except those who have the privilege to walk in nature. Seriously. It's such a perfect little design. And I know it sounds so woo and out there, but so does the idea that someone would make a tick into a weapon. But it happened. It's a fact. Would also be as mad as saying that that somewhere inside the UK is an independent country that nobody's aware of. But there is. The Crown of London. You swear allegiance to the Crown in England, you're swearing allegiance to a conglomerate of private corporations centred in the middle of London who have their own private security force. It's not part of the United Kingdom. It just rules over it. Same as Washington DC is not part of the United States of America. You can look into this. I did a video about who owns your name. You can check it all. Vatican's not part of anything. You've got a financial centre, a war centre. You've got a religious centre, a spiritual centre. That's so far-fetched people can't wrap their head around it, yet you can go and look at it, it's there. It just doesn't fit with the worldview we've been fed and bought. So, I think it's very important we start taking note of this disease. And how people are getting infected as well, because it's not necessarily just tick bites anymore. You know, it seems to be certain information when people, I've made a video about this before, when certain people take a certain stance against certain societies, certain establishments, they wound up sick, dead, or with some scandal pushed upon them by some wealthy people somewhere. This is universally the fact of the matter, whether your brain can accept it. If you go through history, this happens over and over again. And a man who shared the same information as myself about the sacred secretion, a very important topic, something that has been manipulated by elitists to bolster their power. Something that should be understood if it's to be fought. Was shared in depth by Santos Bernocchi as well online. Syncretism was his term for it all. Santos and I have spoken briefly over the years, and we both know who each other are, and we both admire one another for what we believe. I don't believe all that Santos believes, but it doesn't mean that he's wrong. I might be wrong. I just don't, maybe as of yet, believe it, but I don't believe it all. However, he's as sick as I am. Exactly the same situation, just without any explanation. The mind boggles. Maybe I'm just unlucky and I got bit by a tick. Or maybe I'm unlucky and I got bit by a tick that has a weapon designed by the American military that was let loose by accident. Or maybe it wasn't a tick that infected me at all. But all I know is that it's another point of great concern for humanity. Just as many humans are concerned about the central banking system, and they're concerned about geoengineering and chemtrailing, and people are concerned about the disparity and the inequality. This pathogen should be a concern. It's the #1 infectious disease. It's an epidemic now. It's just not being spoken about because the American governing bodies will claim it doesn't even exist. Yet they'll have studies done in vitro on it to show how antibiotics works against it. They'll claim that chronic states don't work, don't exist, yet people will do 3-4 years of antibiotics and recover. There's a great documentary called Under Our Skin, shows you the travesty and the corruption of the American system regarding this disease. And there's a book called The Bitten. You should read that because it covers the whole concept. But there's something very wrong. And I want humanity to be aware of it, because I said in the Lyme group I'm in yesterday, I have nothing but sorrow in my heart for the people in that group who have children as young as 2 years old I saw, who are sick like me. 2 years old. Because some cowardly, sadistic bastards used the gift of imagination instead of using it to imagine a solution to hunger and poverty or sickness, to design something that destroys lives by destroying the very body that we live our lives within. I'm glad I believe God forgives, because I doubt I could ever forgive such a person. Not for what they're putting people through at this day. I hope they're in some sort of conscious torment over it, wherever they are. Because it's a vile human who uses their arm to kill a person, and it's a vile human who uses their brain to invent evil. Whether you say it's for science or not, you're disgusting. And I stand by it. If you're an engineer making weapons, you're disgusting. If you're a scientist making bioweapons, you're disgusting. Quit your job. Go and do something worthwhile. Something to better the planet, not to hurt people. Don't design something that you wouldn't want yourself, in short. God bless, guys.